Hi and welcome to the NBA show. My name is Morten Jensen and today we'll be discussing the Golden State Warriors. What went right, what went wrong, and where do they go from here? So stay tuned. So obviously right now, because the Warriors didn't make the NBA playoffs, they lost 2 games in the play-in tournament, the narrative is pretty negative surrounding their entire ball club, and that's why I want to start with something good, because I want to get this off on a positive note. And that starts and ends with the play of Stephen Curry. Of course we have to bring that up. I mean, he led the league in scoring at over 31 points per game. He hit a career high, yes, a career high 5.3 3-pointers per game. I can't even comprehend. Can you? My mind doesn't work in that way that I can fathom just what he did. 5.3 made 3-pointers per game. Are you freaking kidding me? That's insane. That's pure insanity. So some would argue that because Klay Thompson wasn't there, Curry just had the green light all throughout the regular season. That isn't wrong. That is absolutely right. That said, normally when you're looking at those situations, that guy wouldn't be able to maintain the level of efficiency that he did. So I don't really care. I mean, I take everything that Curry did this year as a positive. I look at his play this year as something really encouraging moving forward, especially considering last year he was injured, only played like 5 games. So there was always this underlining lingering fear of, oh, would he go down? Was this become a pattern of injuries? No, I am beyond that. That's gone. Those starts are thankfully away. Hopefully you guys aren't doubting him as well. It seems like he's here to stay. Him and the Golden State Warriors are apparently also already discussing a contract extension worth 4 years, my apologies, and $214 million. And some people might say, a 33-year-old, that's insane. Yeah, under normal circumstances, I would absolutely agree, but this is Steph Curry. This is a guy who likely will be able to hit NBA threes by the time he's 75. It just doesn't matter to me. I mean, that's a great value for someone who is a generational shooter, the best shooter of all time, in fact. I think the value that he has, particularly for the Golden State Warriors, also just marketing value, legacy value, it's peanuts for just the type of person and the player that they get. And if he drops off a little bit over the course of the next 5 years, it's sort of to be expected, but at the same time, I'm pretty much maintaining my stance that at least the next 3 years are going to be very similar to the one that we just saw. So we can talk about putting this guy into one of those positive categories. I don't know if I'm quite there, but I will acknowledge that there were times this year where Andrew Wiggins played better. I think when the Warriors fan base started arguing him for All-Star, I think it went a little bit overboard. I don't think at any point during this season he made it that far, but I did see a little bit more consistency from him offensively, and I saw a greater, let's say, willingness to play defense. Now, don't get me wrong. He is still not a good defender, and he is still not one of those guys you can rely on offensively to be a high-efficient, high-volume scorer as we thought he would be coming into the NBA. I don't think he'll ever become that guy. That ship has sailed. But if we can look at that situation and expect him to make these gradual changes every single year and become a little bit more consistent, a little bit more engaged defensively in particular, I think ultimately you could be looking at a guy who becomes rock solid. Is that in his cards? I don't know. It's all on him. I think under these circumstances, playing next to Steph, having Steve Kerr as your coach, there's also Klay Thompson coming back next year. I think that could help him in the long run. This year, he did show some improvements, like I said, but there's still a lot left where you just go, ugh, why did you take certain shots? I mean, we have seen him be switched on to like a very small point guard and end up taking like fadeaway 18-footers where you just go, why? You're 6'8", you're supremely athletic. Go to the basket, for crying out loud. So the basketball IQ is probably always going to limit him in a certain capacity. But I do think, like I said, if we can get those gradual improvements, we're looking at a guy who might, for the long run, be a overall net positive. That's at least my hope. I might be wrong. So I'm putting him in the positive category for now because I want to be very, very optimistic for a change. I don't want to be the guy that just comes in and says, oh, that guy's bad, that guy's bad. No, everything is trash. No, that's not how I work. I hope for the best in every player because then we get, ultimately speaking, a better product. And Wiggins, despite my very frequent doubts about his game, did show me a little something this year. So I'm taking that and I'm running with it. Next up is the play of Kelly Oubre, and much like Wiggins, I kind of put him in both camps. He had just a dreadful start to the season, as I've said many times on this channel, and he really started delivering after that. When he came over that hump, he really began scoring the ball at a much more efficient and consistent rate. He started rebounding the ball more. He started playing more of a team-oriented offense. During the start of the season, he was playing much outside the offense, taking shots where you just kind of scratch your head and going, well, that's not part of the game plan. How could it be? And to his credit, he just started playing better. He started playing smarter. He started integrating himself a little bit more into the world of Steph, which, let's be fair, that is what the Warriors is. And that is not something bad. That's not a bad moniker. Having the world of Steph around you and have that entire organization be very Curry-centric, that's a good thing. So the more players who buy into that mindset, the more they are going to flourish and really be great players. And I think, to Kelly Oubre's credit, as the season went along, he started more and more accepting those terms. And then we had some injuries and he fell off a little bit, which was really unfortunate, both for him, for the Warriors. So he's a free agent coming this year. We don't even know if he's going to remain a Warrior, so he's a big question mark. But yeah, I can't really put him all the way in the good column just because that start to the season was really horrific. I think he shot like 19% on threes over the first 10 games. You can correct me on that. It was something along those lines. It was just dreadful. But I will give him that he really came back and went after it afterwards. So a mixed bag for Oubre Jr. If they do retain him, I fully expect him to have a much better season going into next year. Klay would be back. Curry, as I already talked about, seems to be back in his elite form as well. That's going to provide him with so much space, both as a slasher, as a shooter. I think he would have so much a better defined role than what he did this year. So hopefully he's back. I think that would behoove both him. I think it would behoove the Warriors to bring him back because they need someone like him who is one of those slashing forwards who can play both the 3 and the 4. I just think it makes sense. Okay, so let's talk Draymond. There's no chance in hell I'm putting him in the bad category because his defense, his playmaking remains, I should say, outstanding. The scoring is an issue, we'll get to that. But look, for someone like him, defensively, who is that switchable, who is that great at just reading opposing plays, who's such a strong communicator, who keeps bringing the energy, who keeps bringing the fight, that's tremendous. I don't even have the words right now. He himself has called himself like the best defender I think ever, and I'm not there. I'm not on the best, but one of the best, certainly. That is absolutely one of those fair monikers where some people take offense, but no, like, you need to get with the program if you don't consider Draymond Green one of the best defenders of all time. He is right up there with some of the best multi-purpose, multi-positional defenders who can both guard the wing and the big spots. He's right in that category. And that is why I kind of want to put a little bit of a spotlight on that, because when you look at his raw stats, especially the scoring, you kind of go, what the hell happened? And that is fair criticism. And again, I'll get back to that. But you need to look at his whole body of work. The rebounding, the playmaking, the versatile defense, he gives you that. He gives you this all-around game. He gives you a constant triple-double threat as well. There's always these scenarios where he's involved in plays. He doesn't take games off, even if the box score indicates that he wasn't that active. Then when you watch the game, he'll clearly show you that he was. He was locked in, he was engaged, he was effective, he was involved in everything. So overall, I'm just not worried about him moving forward from that perspective. Scoring, however, Yeah, okay, let's get to it. So after the season ended, there was an exit interview, and apparently Bob Myers, the GM, Steve Kerr, head coach, obviously, and Draymond sat down, and one of the topics was Draymond scoring, or rather lack thereof. It's a problem because he will pass up wide open driving lanes. He will occasionally even pass up layups where you just go, what the actual hell? Now, to his credit, I think as the season progressed, he actually became a little bit more effective on that end. He was a little bit more of an attack mode, but he needs to be that so much more often. I mean, I understand that his jump shot isn't reliable. He had 1 year where he shot, I believe it was 38% from the outside, and people kind of took that as, oh, he's going to join in on the fun. He's going to develop into a 40% shooter. He didn't. That was unfortunately the outlier. He's just not a strong three-point shooter. So it makes sense that when teams give him that he's kind of reluctant in taking that. So I, of course, don't know what the situation was with the exit meeting in terms of the specifics that went into that conversation. But I don't imagine Steve Kerr is like, hey, just jack up the three, knowing full well that that could be a 20% shot by next year. I think this is more along the lines of him becoming a slasher and a driver, and when he sees a mismatch, just go at it. So here's my thoughts on this. Draymond is 6'7". He's 235 pounds. He's very, very nimble on his feet despite that wide frame. And of course, he's got great ball handling. There's a reason that he's the secondary creator. There's a reason that he leads the team in assists as well. This is a guy who knows how to feel comfortable with the ball in his hands. So I wouldn't feel as though if he became more of a slasher, someone who drove to the cup a little bit more, that would be out of his game rather. Yeah, he's not necessarily a great finisher around the basket, but if he can get into that mid-range area and just create contact, maybe get himself to the line or collapse defense, and just be just a bit of a more of a scoring threat, that's going to open up the floor for everyone else. So I think that's the conversation they had with him, is you just need to not be a non-factor. You need to be a factor. Even if you're the fifth option on the floor, you just cannot be the guy who stands all the way out and lets everyone else play 4-on-5 basketball. This needs to be a 5-on-5 game. So I look very, very much forward to what Draymond is going to do next year. He's usually the guy who takes up a challenge. And if Myers and Kerr challenged him at that exit interview, you damn well know that he's going to be in the gym all summer, readying himself for next year, and he's going to take that challenge head on. So very, very optimistic about the future of Draymond Green, especially considering that exit interview. So let's pivot on to the kids a little bit, because we can talk about what went wrong, and it's really a mixed bag of things. I don't think one thing went wrong for the Warriors to not make it into the playoffs. I think they were hurt. I think some of their young guys just weren't necessarily ready. And let's start off by talking about James Wiseman. I've already mentioned him a few times on this channel. And yes, this was a overall disappointing rookie season for him, considering the hype he came in with, the size, and the way that he started the year. Now, I don't think it was supremely disappointing like some other people think. I mean, I fully understand that this was a guy who played just 3 games in college. He's 19 years old. I think he's 20 now. So ultimately speaking, I don't think it's fair to put just a tremendous amount of pressure or expectations on such a young guy who really didn't play competitive basketball for well over a year. I don't think that's fair, but I will acknowledge, just considering his size, his athleticism, and just how physically ready he looked, slightly disappointed in the overall effort and intensity level. But you know what? I'm not concerned about the future necessarily. I think this was a wake-up call for him. Just coming into the NBA, understanding this is a different league. Things are moving so much quicker. Guys are so much better at virtually everything. I need to adapt. I need to get better. I need to really go into the film room. I need to go into the weight room. I think for him, this is just going to be that type of season that he wants to rid himself of again. Just get it back, get it away rather from his memory, and go into year 2 with an entirely different mindset. So the question for me next year is not as much offensively, it's more defensively. Because after all, this is a guy who is 7'1", who is very, very quick off his feet. I want him to chase blocks initially. And I know that's sacrilegious because chasing blocks means fouls. It's not really prioritizing proper defensive positioning. I get that. Right now, I just want him to chase blocks because that is a level of confidence that you get when you block a shot. It's a confidence builder. It's something that says, oh, I can contest shots. Then after he's over that, he can sort of pivot back into this whole proper positioning mentality. Right now, just go out and try to get like 3 blocks a game. Become Serge Ibaka from the OKC era, for example. I don't care. Just go get some success stories. Be that intimidating shot blocker that makes people think twice before entering the lane. And then you can pivot over to playing just smart basketball. But of course, that's also a decision. That's an executive decision from him, from the coaching staff. And you also have to get Draymond Green on board because Green was tough on the young Wiseman. Whenever he did gamble for steals or gamble for blocks, Draymond was right there in his ear. So this has to be a collective, team unified decision. But I think for Wiseman in particular, he just needs to have success stories. So that means blocks, rebounds, dunks, 3-pointers, all the highlight things, which sounds ridiculous, but it's something that helps, especially young players, build that confidence up to saying, oh, okay, I can do these things. I can get those dunks. I can get those threes. I can get blocks. I can rebound. I can pass. I can do all these things. Great. Now let me try to identify what my game is going to be at the NBA level. And in terms of Wiseman, I think it's substantial. So we'll see what goes on there moving forward. I am not as down on him as a lot of other people are. That said, I'm also tempering my expectations. I'm not going out saying he's going to be an all-star next year. I think it's going to be a process, and I think he is going to be a project. A lot of P words. So yeah, again, not worried, but we'll see. Patience, another P word. Speaking of the kids, I gotta bring up Jordan Poole, 21 years old. We really don't talk enough about what he did this year. 12 points per game. He became a very reliable scorer at the end of the season. He had a stretch where he averaged over 19 points per game here at the end of the season. He just looked phenomenal. He looked way more comfortable as the season went on. You can sense a theme here, right? It was the same with Wiggins, same with Kelly Oubre, and also Poole now. A lot of these guys just really have this tendency to come in and spend the year kind of gaining momentum, and Poole was no exception. He was a guy who really started hitting from the outside. He started creating his own shot off the bounce. He started getting into the lane. He felt a lot more comfortable taking shots within the flow of the offense. And when you are playing next to Steph Curry and you yourself are able to feel confident creating off your own bounce, that's huge. Like, I cannot overemphasize how huge that is. We have seen so many guys come in, play next to Curry, and just kind of say, oh, no, you're the king. I'm not even going to touch the ball. I'm just going to stand in the corner and watch. Jordan Poole does not just watch. He is involved. He wants the basketball. He wants to be involved in the offense. He moves around when Curry has the ball, trying to find himself an open spot so Curry can find him. I think this is a guy who could help also prolong Klay Thompson's career when he returns next year, because obviously we don't know what caliber of player Thompson is going to be like, but we do know that when you have had major injuries, history kind of indicates that it is going to shorten your career. So if you have a guy like Jordan Poole who can take over a certain level of the offense, it might actually help Klay and Steph too prolong their careers in not having to get up a tremendous amount of shots every single night. Now, is he going to be some 20-point scorer moving forward? I don't know. I'm not closing the door on that, but I'm also not going to say that he will be. I think if we can just get a version of him who is consistently productive every single night, who spaces the floor, who gets into the teeth of the defense, who makes plays off the bounce, it's fine. It's all good. You're getting tremendous value out of that. And on the plus side, he's so young that in a couple years from now, we're probably going to look at a guy who's way more refined, way more ready to make a long and deep postseason run. And hell, maybe even if he isn't ready, we could look at next year as being that year where they might do that. Now, of course, I can't bring up the kids without also mentioning that they could be used in trade packages. Now, I know, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy who just automatically says, if you're a young guy playing on a veteran team, you need to get the hell out of there. That's not how I operate. That's not what I'm trying to suggest. All I'm saying is that there could be teams out there during the summer who just goes, we are in the market of young players. We are rebuilding, actively rebuilding, and we are looking to get off of some of our veterans And in that case, the Warriors would just have to listen. I mean, I'm not saying they need to pull the trigger on anything. I definitely believe that if there is a trade offer for especially Wiseman, you need to be absolutely sure that you're getting enough bang for the buck, because if you give him up and he blows up elsewhere, becomes a superstar, that's not a great look. And yeah, you could sort of say, well, it doesn't matter with the look if it helps the Warriors. Yeah, but what if they don't make the finals then and they just gave up a long-term superstar for maybe a second-round exit? That wouldn't look good. So you have to kind of weigh the entire situation. You have to understand, what is it that I'm potentially giving up here and what am I getting in return? It needs to be a significant haul for them to give up Wiseman and Jordan Poole and maybe even the Minnesota pick. But you could also make it another case that if you offer those 3 items, which is a significant haul for any team trying to rebuild, you should be able to get a star in. And if you can do that, it's worth discussing. Now, I'm not saying you need to pull the trigger on anything. It's all about having conversations. It's all about sitting down and identifying your needs, identifying what you want to get out of next year. Are you looking at a championship? Are you looking at one more year before you pivot into championship contention in terms of mindset? Where are you? So those things need to be figured out first, and then you can sort of pivot into those conversations later on if you believe that's the right play. For now, the next steps, to me at least, is just getting Klay Thompson back, making sure that Stephen Curry is absolutely right physically going into next year, and trying to re-sign Kelly Oubre. I think he is one of those big pieces that you need to bring back. I understand that a lot of Warriors fans are a little bit skeptical of him. I get why. It wasn't a great start to the year. I also understand that he's not one of those Kevin Durant type wings. But in today's NBA, you just need versatile players. He is that. He's also just 25, so there's still room for potential. There's still room for additional potential, I should say. So I would try to prioritize him. I would try to prioritize getting Klay back into the swing of things. And if you have that trio, along with Wiggins and a motivated Draymond who might be looking to score a little bit more, and the internal development of Wiseman and Poole, you know what? I think they could look pretty good. And they might also have a high lottery draft pick coming in. There are some protections on the Minnesota pick, so we'll see what happens. But ultimately speaking, I am not down on these Warriors whatsoever. And I don't really understand the whole media narrative that is so negative about them. I understand there were hopes that they would make the playoffs. I also understand losing 2 games in the play-in tournament is ugly. I really do. That they dropped the ball that one, and they deserve criticism for doing that. But to go from there and basically attack the entire team and say, oh, this needs to be blown up, which I've seen plenty of. No. You just don't go that route. Stay the course. Be aggressive in your offseason moves. Make sure that you have your key guys back and they're involved in the offense and defense for that matter. And then next year, you could be right back into the swing of things. Of course, a lot depends on Klay Thompson and just what kind of caliber of player he is when he returns. I am a little bit skeptical because after all, an Achilles tear and ACL tear on top of each other, or I think it was the other way around actually, that's gruesome. That is something that not a whole lot of players come back from. But he's not a guy who relies a whole lot on athleticism. He's a guy who's fundamentally sound, so maybe that actually helps him a whole lot in getting back. We'll see.